Hey there, how are you, Australia?
We're good. Yeah, Mark, nice to nice to talk to you. I'm not sure what the temperature is here, but it's 31 Celsius here, which is about, I guess, about 88 Fahrenheit.
I
It
just want
probably
to,
never gets that.
yeah. I just want to shoot myself.
It probably never gets that hot in Canada. Is that
No,
right?
no, no, and it never gets as cool as Australia either, because they're the coolest people in the whole wide world. So, I mean,
Yeah.
apart from the Irish, really, but yeah. No, so Dan, for all the brand DIYers out listening to this, this is a pre-recorded show. Everybody on brand DIY knows that we usually go on at 10 in the morning Pacific time. However, 10 in the morning Pacific time is 4 o'clock in the morning where Dan is, which is in Melbourne, Australia. And so there's no way we could do this show live. And it is an important show. And so I wanted to get it pre-recorded because I think you've got some awesome stuff on a very topical topic, probably the most topical topic of all topical topics. We're going to talk about Donald Trump, but we are going to talk based on your expertise. Now, you are a team leader, one of the big brains at Mext Consulting, and your colleague Stefan, the founder of Mext, has already been on the show talking about the 6 buckets of trust. Mext is an agency that's all about rapidly accelerating trust for people, organizations, and brands. And Stefan was already on talking about the 6 specific buckets of trust that you can use to accelerate trust. However, Stefan is German and he's freaking boring. So I wanted to bring on somebody who is much cooler and a much cooler topic so we could talk about Mext and building trust rapidly, but in the context of Donald Trump. Now, this is important because when this show airs, the Electoral College will have verified Joe Biden as the next president, and I hope Donald Trump will have ridden off into the sunset. I know he won't, and that's what we're going to talk about with you. So you brought up this topic because we were thinking of things to talk about. Why Donald Trump? Why do you want to talk about this?
Well, I think it's funny. I met a guy this morning, and he said to me he's not sure what he's going to do with himself now that Donald Trump is not going to be president anymore. But I think the reality is Donald Trump is not going to go away. And for whether that's a positive or a negative thing is kind of irrelevant. He's going to be around. He's worked really hard to build his brand as Donald Trump. So I think post presidency, we're going to see Donald Trump's brand, in maybe some quite interesting places, but maybe some places we've already seen it before as well. So that's what I want to talk about.
I mean, I can predict, we talked about this pre-show. He's going to push the Trumpettes, all the baby Trumps, into the spotlight and try to get them in on the grift. He's going to probably start his own media network or something where he can, put out the misinformation full time. He'll probably launch, I don't know what, another necktie company, or I don't know what, new hat company, new MAGA, we try to make America great again. So I could see that. I mean, what else do you see?
Well, I think I would see. I mean, I'm not sure if I think the media opportunity is great. So I think that's what he's going to do. I think you're right. The baby Trumps will be out there. There's talk already of Ivanka possibly running in Florida for a Senate seat there, and Lara Trump, I think, running in North Carolina, somewhere like that. So I think they're the really obvious things. But I think I'm in terms of other things. I mean, I think Donald Trump is a bit of a Back to the Future kind of guy. So I think it's so it's going to be some, it's going to be about using that Trump brand, probably more buildings with his name on and things like that. But I think that's kind of the angle that he's going to take on it.
Yeah. So Trump, trust. Why are we talking about trust in the same sentence as Trump?
Well, I think it's the liberal media kind of focus a lot on Trump and the false or misleading statements that he constantly shares with everybody. It's if you don't know that about him, then you're never going to know it by now. And the reality is, I think the Washington Post does its its fact checker. And the last time I think I looked at it was in September, and he'd already given 23,000 false or misleading statements in September. So I'm not sure what the figure would be now. But the reality is that truth and trust are actually not the same thing. So you really need to understand what's beneath the surface of the support that he gets. So, and trust is such an important driver of human behavior. So I think you said Stefan had already been on the show talking about the 6 buckets of trust. So I think the best thing to do is actually kind of unpick the Trump trust story and fill those buckets of trust. And I think it's such an easy exercise to do. And you realize once you do it for Trump, you can actually do it for any brand or any product or any individual. So I think that's what we should do, Mark. So I think
let's do it.
Go through.
Totally.
All right. So without rehashing what Stefan's already gone through, there are 6 buckets of trust. We know this based on the research that we've done and the psychological modeling that underpins our model. So what I'll do is I'll just talk about them in 3 pairs. Yep. So the first pair we always talk about is stability trust and development trust. So stability trust is really that idea of your foundation, your history, your heritage in your brand or you as an individual. So, Trump has got a really strong story here. He argues he's a successful businessman. He's a billionaire. He's written The Art of the Deal. So, there are things that fill that bucket of trust for him from a stability point of view. Stability always works in tension with this idea of development trust. So development trust is this, it's all about how you stay relevant now and into the future. And as I said before, like, this is not really a strong, trust driver for Trump. He really is as I said before, a back to the future kind of guy. And you know that when Make America Great Again kind of tells you the whole story.
Yeah, the coal miners, right? The coal miners.
Yeah, coal miners. But he still does some things in this area. He, I always when I think about development trust for Donald Trump, I think of the Space Force. It's kind of lampooned in the late night talk shows and whatever else. But it is an example of filling that development trust bucket. But the other thing when I think again going back to this point of back to the future, if you think about when people thought America was great, you think of the Apollo missions. I remember as a kid watching the first space shuttle launch. It's quite closely knitted to this idea of dominating space. So I think it's actually quite it's not an unusual thing that he might pick that as something to fill that development trust bucket. Mm-hmm. The second pair I always talk about is relationship trust and benefit trust. So relationship trust is all about human qualities that you bring to a situation. And people often fall back on the idea that relationship trust or human qualities need to be these kind of nicey things. You need to be kind and caring and supportive and responsive. Well, hopefully I can say this on your podcast, but that's kind of bullshit. Yeah. It works for some things, but it certainly doesn't work for other things. And you think about Donald Trump, what his appeal is for many people is this idea that he speaks my language. He speaks to those people directly in the way that they would speak for themselves, and he's blunt, he's forceful, he takes no prisoners, right? So that's the way he puts himself across. How that connects to a benefit trust or the practical value, it's really about this idea, he sort of positions himself like he's sticking it to the man, mm-hmm. Even though he is the man. Mm-hmm. It's kind of it's a beautiful kind of sleight of hand, I suppose. But for his supporters, it makes total sense to them. They can understand exactly why they should trust him for benefit trust. Mm-hmm. And I think ultimately what it means, it's like he's our man in the White House. So that gets to the bottom of the benefit trust that he delivers to the 70 million plus people that voted for him. Mm-hmm. The last pairing is this idea of vision trust and competence trust. So vision trust is this idea of a higher purpose. So I think there's probably no need to really explore this. Everybody knows what it is. It's, make America great again. Mm-hmm. Or I think he ended up saying, make America great again again, or keep America great again. But, you get the idea. So it's this idea of, I'm going to take us back to a past where we were wonderful and everybody looked up to us because we were so strong and powerful. So I think that's really his vision trust. How he delivers that from a competence point of view, it is this idea of, sticking it to the man. I introduced tariffs. I pushed back on China. I didn't just push back on China. I pushed back on NATO. So I told the Europeans to go screw themselves. If they want our power, they need to cough up more money for their defense. He stuck it to you guys as well. Canada and Mexico. He rewrote NAFTA. So it's this idea of the competence that he's delivering these things. The argument that he's bringing back manufacturing jobs. Having his photo taken at the Harley Davidson factory. Or honking horns on big semi trailers.
Yeah.
It's all about him showing that capability to make America great again.
Yeah.
So that's really how Donald Trump is filling those buckets of trust. So I can't imagine him really straying too far from that. So whatever he explores in the future, I think it's going to be based on those things. And whether it's pushing, Don Jr., into a presidential run in 2024, or Ivanka or Lara, whatever it will be, it's going to be based on that Trump brand. And I think for his exploits, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes up with a plan around a new cable network that will push him. Yeah.
Now, what's interesting to me, and I think everybody in the Brand DIY group has to remember, is that most of us believe, because it has been indoctrinated into us, is that a brand is built over a lifetime of being virtuous, and the brand trust can be destroyed in a second. And what Donald Trump has proven is that this is complete horseshit.
Yeah.
He does not tell the truth. So the fundamental thing of building trust, he does not do. Yet he has incredible trust. Like he said, he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not get arrested. He could do the worst things, and he has, in power, done some of the worst things, enough to get any other president thrown out on their ear. And they love him. He's built up incredible trust. So this old paradigm of need to be virtuous your whole life in order to build trust and do one thing wrong and it's gone.
Yeah.
It's BS. So
it is.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I think the way I would interpret what you're describing is this idea that trust is a binary thing. You either are or you're not. And we don't view it that way. And it's not how trust forms and grows or diminishes in the mind. It's just not how it works. So I'd say every millisecond that we live, we're building or destroying trust in ourselves, and it goes up a little bit or it goes down a little bit. You might have listened to what I've just said and thought, this guy knows his stuff, and my trust equity is going up. But then I might say something that you disagree with, and it will go down a little bit. That's kind of how it works. And I think Trump has such great instincts, for knowing his market and knowing his audience. So that kind of seemingly flippant statement about I can shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, it's actually true. I think he would try and find a way out of it, and might achieve it as well. So I think you got to view it in that way, and that's why every brand can be resuscitated or can be diminished over time, but it's actually about how you fill those trust buckets, and they all play different parts at different points in time. It's like different things will drive trust at different situational points and different contexts. So you just got to understand it and work your trust buckets, basically.
Yeah. So I mean, for entrepreneurs and people building up from zero trust or being unknown and having to establish trust, what should they be taking away from the lesson of Donald Trump?
what should they take away from it? So I think you've got to know your audience, and you've got to know what trust they are looking for. So when we always do research with people, we tend, or for people, I should say, we try to, we go through this interview process where we're trying to really understand people's audiences. So you mentioned, you talked about different things that we focus on. So we focus on charities, for instance. So we try to help charities understand their audience. You know, so a lot of the time the focus is around potentially, you know, playing the violin, trying to get people in by tugging at the heartstrings. But we know from our work in charity that that is not how to fill that trust bucket for those, for many people. It's about understanding the value exchange you get from giving. And so people want to know what they're going to get out of it. So it's about understanding that audience. So bringing it back to entrepreneurs, you've got to know your market. You've got to know the kind of trust that people want. Often when you begin, I think it's relationship and benefit trust as a primary thing. And then you've got to think about, you know, what am I going to say about my heritage to fill that stability trust? What am I going to say about development? How am I going to tell my visionary story? It's about how you tell your story and use those different trust buckets.
Now, we're going away from Trump here for a second because this just reminded me. One of the things that I do, I help people write their brand story, and the brand story is the founder story, where I came from and how I built this company. The customer story, the person who was unhappy before they discovered my product, they discovered it and now they're living a happy life. The market story, that the market was in a status quo place, and then we disrupted the market with our new thing. And the venture story, which is we started this company and disrupted the market and continue to disrupt it. And here's where we are and here's where we're going. So let's unpack this for a second. The founder story. I always say that the reason you put a founder story in there is because I want the customer to build resonance with the founder. He's just like me. I like him. I'm going to buy his whatever. Now, what fundamentals of trust is in the founder story? I'd say that's relationship. That's probably vision, the vision that the founder has. There's
and it's stability as well.
Stability. Yeah, I would say stability, that this is a person who has a proven track record. He's not a flake.
Yeah.
What else? That all kind of goes into it.
So the founder story, you can it taps into different trust buckets. So I mean, the other thing I would say is that you can fill multiple trust buckets at the same time. So a founder story, you say, you know, Mark has been working on this particular idea for the last 15 years. He thinks about it every night. That's stability trust. It fills relationship trust. It just shows that you're determined. It might be that you're innovative. You know, you're thinking beyond the current market. So that's about relationship trust, the kind of human qualities you bring. Vision is you're thinking ahead of the wave. You know, you're not catching a wave. You're seeing a wave before it's, you know, the swells actually come. And competence is it might be that you saw this wave coming and you created an idea that would fill that void. That's about competence trust. And these are the things that you brought to market. And these are the things that it delivers for your customers. That's about benefit trust. You know, so you can actually work out which buckets you want to fill and how you want to fill them in any kind of scenario. So you can go through that story that you were just telling there and work out which trust buckets you're filling at which particular point in time.
And then you can emphasize and de-emphasize, knowing kind of that you have a matrix of the points you want to hit.
Yeah,
I think that's super helpful. Now, what about customers? Customer was living their normal humdrum life, not really happy, but not knowing they're unhappy. Suddenly they discovered this new thing and they went, holy, that'll make me happy. They use it and they lead a happy life. I could see that being relationship trust. I could see it, what else?
Development trust. So
development.
You know, exactly. So if you there are people that, you know, I think they're often called like the early adopters and things like that. So, you know, let's say, I don't know, remember iPods? You know, you had a scenario where you know, where MP3 players existed already. They were already invented. you come up with the iPod, it's just like a fancier version of it. But
Mm-hmm.
like if you think about the consumer there, you're giving them a really cool MP3. That's what an iPod is.
Mm-hmm.
So so if you think about how they can bask in the reflected glory of an iPod, it tells people that they're cool. So knowing Mark with his iPod, he's a cool guy. He's always got cool stuff. The benefit I get out of or the benefit that Mark gets out of having an iPod is he can demonstrate to his friends or his colleagues that he's really cutting edge.
Mm-hmm.
He knows about the latest tech development trust. So you can actually fill all those buckets. So it's all about understanding what those buckets are and how to fill them.
Very interesting. Now, what about market and venture? Last two questions. The market was status quo. Nothing had happened in a long time. We came in and blew it up. Now that must be, let's see here. Benefits, stability, competence, vision. Vision, is that? No, that's not
Yeah.
vision. What is
Well,
that?
if you're known for disruption, it is.
Elon Musk. Elon Musk comes in and blows everything up.
Yeah, that's right. So Elon Musk, he shoots a car into space. That's development trust. It's, I don't know what the vision of Tesla is, but it's about disrupting everything from cars to energy to fulfillment. I can see, you can see how his vision taps into that. Competence is all about delivery. So the Tesla, he's the Henry Ford of cars in the 21st century, right? So he's gonna be the first person to bring a mass market electric car to market everywhere. So that competence trust is all about his ability to fulfill on that promise. So you see it everywhere. Like where I live, there's a Tesla servicing plant near here. You see ports where people can plug in and charge their cars. It all links to Elon Musk's vision and his ability to deliver on it.
Yeah. All right. And the final one, which is venture trust or a venture story. The venture story is here's where we are. Here's where we're going. Here's our mission, what we're here to do. Here's our vision, what we're going to do, and our values, the things that we always do. I'd see that being relationship. I see that being competence. I see that being vision. I see that being a ton of stuff.
Yeah. So again, it's you're right. So as soon as you start thinking in the trust way, you realize that every story has elements of trust in it. You just got to know which ones are the ones you want to target at any particular time. So I used to be head of experience at a big advertising firm where we use trust models as well. So it's all about, if it's a retention play, you got to think about all the touch points and which elements of trust you're gonna hit at any particular time. But in terms of venture, again, it's all situational and context. So at that early point, relationship, vision, competence might be important. But if you're known for being disruptors, you've got to be able to demonstrate that you have development trust. You're staying relevant now. Anyone chipping in money to your ventures has to believe that you are ahead of that curve, I think, as well. So it's a whole bunch of different things, different times.
Very cool. Well, I wanted to thank you, but you know what? One thing, like pulling it all back to Trump again, over the course of 4 years living here in North America, watching CNN and NBC and stuff like that, it's just a 24-hour news cycle of nothing but he owned it. As long as when one disaster was getting fact checked, he would go on to the next disaster and always be one step ahead of the people going, no, wait, that's not true. And just dancing merrily along. And to me, what blew me away about this whole thing is that over the course of 4 years, people kept being righteously indignant about the fact that he wasn't telling the truth and wasn't building trust the way that trust should be built.
Yeah.
And it, talking to you, if you would have been on the air 4 years ago, people would have gone, oh, I get it. You don't have to be telling the truth. You can be outrageous and people will still trust you if you break it into these very specific components here,
Yeah.
because people did not catch on to what you are talking about for 4
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And he kept going, well, why, how, you know, he can't do, he should be thrown out. Never was.
Yeah.
But you know, what you say is, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know,
It doesn't matter.
quite something.
And I think the you know, the trap of media as well, like CNN or the major networks in the US, is how to, you know, I think they never really got their heads around how to deal with someone like Trump, because the paradigm had shifted and they hadn't shifted with it. So I think that, you know, the trap they fell into is believing that they needed to hold him accountable to a paradigm that didn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And they would be much better off understanding it differently. And, you know, it's probably why, you know, the late night talk show hosts were able to deal with it better, because they have a different perception of reality and truth. So they were able to fight fire with fire, I think, you know, so that's why they became actually more important than CNN did.
Yeah. What a great perspective. All right, Dan, you know what? We are going to do another show with you in the very near future, because you hit on the charity thing. And I believe that with this massive COVID virus, economic meltdown, world just sort of tumbling in on itself, one of the hardest hit industries is charities. And I know it is. And in fact, you and I have done a little bit of exploring around charities and how to apply the Mext trust model to charities. And I got to say, the limited sort of digging into it that we've done, the doors are flying open. This is obviously a very important topic. So I want to bring you back in the very near future, and we're going to devote a show just to trust building in the charity sector, because I know that there's at least half a dozen to a dozen charities in the brand DIY group, folks who are working for not-for-profits. Yeah. So I think that would be a huge benefit too. Is that cool with you?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Awesome, man. All right, Dan. Now, one thing to sign off, everybody check the show notes, because Dan is going to be sending me a link to the new book from Mext, which is basically building trust in the professional services, accountant, lawyer, notary, you know, consultant, things like that. And this, but even if you're not in professional services, this book is well worth buying, because it is very good as far as breaking down the trust bucket, something we should all be able to figure out for ourselves.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to get you to send me that for that link so that I can put it in the show notes and people buy it.
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. So it's all about rethinking trust and being able to, you know, work for yourself to actually fill those 6 buckets.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Mark. All the best. Bye-bye.